Be the designer of your world, not merely the consumer. Welcome back, Mere Mortalized, to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews, and I've got for you Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, James wrote this book fairly recently, 2018, and as soon as the book came out, it was a big bestseller. James himself has been writing about habits and the like in his own blog, which I ended up signing up to after reading this book. So obviously he had a bit of a big network to actually populate this book and get it out there to the world. And now on the cover of this one, it says over 3 million copies sold, but it's actually sold over 5 million copies now. So it's a well-read book, and so you might recognize Atomic Habits. And we're going to get into what the book is all about. Now I'm going to read just the top of the back here. A revolutionary way to get 1% better every day. Now, you might have heard that 1% better every day note, quote, and maybe particularly the graph and how many times you can improve over a year. And I'm not particularly sure whether this book is the one that first initially came up with that. However, it was the one that really popularized that sort of mindset. And the book itself goes into a big breakdown into habits and, atomic habits, as you may. Atomic Habits itself is probably a little bit of a guide as to what the book is about. And right at the start of the book, James describes why he went down the path of calling it Atomic Habits, around the part of atomic and habits. You could also go check out the interview he did with Tim Ferriss, where he actually goes a little bit more in depth as well around why specifically Atomic Habits and all of the processes that he went around that. But to the book itself, it is the habitual, the habits that you can build up in a very atomic way, as in it's not the gigantic things, it's not the huge items that you put forward and you're doing. It is a tiny little chunkable things like atoms in this case, hence atomic, that you can build together, stack together, if you will, that overall improve your habit, procedures, structures, systems. So that in itself gives you an idea of what the book is about and how it actually is broken down. I'm going to go here, as always, to the start of it in the contents page. And I actually do enjoy, especially, obviously not fiction books, but down to the part of books that are self-help, informational. I really enjoy contents that are really structured well. And this book is structured into the fundamentals and then different laws, which is the first law, second law, third law, fourth law, and we'll talk about what those are in particular, and then some advanced tactics as well as what you can do next. And the book is broken down into a whole host of conversations around these laws, around the habits, examples, lots of examples, as well as, quite informational tables as well that give you even more of a view or an example of a real life method of how to actually apply some of these habits. Getting into the actual laws themselves, because it's probably the meaty bit of the actual book. He talks through the making it obvious, the making it attractive, making it easy, and making it satisfying. Those 4 ways around habits and structuring them through. Specifically, if I actually get through in this one, it's the IDED model as James' choice throughout this book. And so that's identifying the cue or the trigger that actually initiates the behavior. You've got the design the craving, so what we desire after the behavior, creating a reward, what we'll get after the behavior, and making it easy, simplifying that behavior. And then he also talks the inverse of these as well. So, going back to those particular laws, there's good conversation to be had and examples to be shown around, okay, if you want to build a habit, you want to make it obvious. Okay, awesome. However, if you have a negative habit, because habits can flow both ways, both in the positive, things that support you, give you value, and things that can detract, as in you can have habits around smoking, eating bad food, etc. So as an example, the first law there is making it obvious with, let's just say, a habit of going to the gym. You want to make it obvious by particularly putting shoes out where you can really easily see them. Now that also gets to a few others of those laws there, but the inverse of that, so of making it obvious, what might you not want to do? Or let's just say with eating bad food, you might make it obvious to yourself of trying to make it an easy call out as to how bad is it in calories. How bad is it for you? Making it not obvious to find the particular thing. There is an example, and this is getting into some of the different laws around, say, the third law of making it easy. And James makes a call out of, again, let's go to the example of going to the gym or going for a run. Make it easy. put together the shoes right by the side of your bed, have your shirt prepared, have your food prepared. All of these things are there ahead of time, so you're almost not making the decision in the moment. It's been made for you earlier. But if you want to go the opposite way, let's say you have a problem with watching TV, James makes this awesome little point that perhaps you might want to put a TV into another room, or perhaps store it away in a cupboard so you don't have to actually go and utilize it. So, there's extremes here around making it easy and not making it easy, but it sort of illustrates the point around the habits and the habit formations. But across the book, it is just that. It is one of those chunkable, stackables, and stackables actual method that's also described in the book. How can you stack things? How can you put things before one another so that they may on the long run go and build yourself the right habits, the habits that you want to put together. Interestingly, the ones that you want to be doing as part of a controlled way, the ones that you actually want to be doing and not taking away. The other big point in the book as well was portions about focusing on the process and not the outcome. And I really like this. There was 2 quotes that I actually pulled out from the book. Now, forget about goals, focus on your systems instead, shift the goals to operational actions, and meaningful change does not require radical change. And just to strike on that top one, right, forgetting about the goals and just to focus on the actual operational actions or the systems in place. That was one aspect that really sung through in this book, and also, resonates with me, because I can see that quite often, if we pull back to my goal setting techniques, and we've talked about this on the Mere Mortals podcast during our monthly goals, if you go back perhaps 2 years, you would see that some of our goal settings, and from other formats, goal settings also what built your habits over the short term and long term, they were very specific to the goal being achieved, aka run 1,000 meters, swim 2,000 meters, lift X amount. And they're fine. Look, above doing nothing, they're better than nothing. However, the point that called out here, James, throughout the book, which I do agree with, and I see even more so as being beneficial, is focusing on the actual operational actions. That is the doing, the action, and that is what you should focus on and improve upon and build the cadence and the resilience around it, then reaching the final goal itself. So in that exact example about swimming 2,000 meters or running 1,000 meters, you might shift that across to say, hey, I want to swim 3 times a week. And that's the operational action. It is the actions, those habits, the cadence that you can actually do repeatedly on and on and on, that will get you to that final outcome, and perhaps more, perhaps less. But it is more important in focusing on that aspect than other ones as well. So that was that aspect of focusing on the process and the meaningful change that doesn't require radical change. That also gets back to the atomic habit quality that's described in this book. So in no point throughout this book is it described by James though you have to go ahead and make some humongous change so that you stop a particular habit. Take smoking, right? I've never smoked before, but it was not described in this book to say, in order to do this, just completely stop and don't do it anymore. Another one of, you're trying to do exercise. It's not saying, okay, well, next week you have to start and do 10 hours a week or 2 hours of running every single day. No, it was the small, predictable, the things that you can do to make those changes as opposed to the radical changes. And that over a long period of time and getting back to the 1% better every day is what's going to be succeeding in the long run. Again, a clear example that he makes in this book is it is probably better to go ahead and do 2 minutes, 5 minutes of a workout. Now, that sounds dumb, and I read that and I went, at first glance, really? But it made sense, because if you can get yourself into the habit of doing things, making it obvious, making it easy, making it attractive, you want to put that together and go, okay, well, if I can do 2 minutes of skipping, for a whole week, every single day, then the next week it might become a little bit easier to do 5 minutes. And then you can evolve it to 7 minutes. And then you can evolve it to 10 minutes, because it is all the other auxiliary things around making the time, making the space, making it easy, which in the end makes it a habit. And it's those atomic habits, it's those small chunkable pieces that you can pick up that in a relative ease over a longer period of time, all of a sudden build out and you go, damn, might not have seen it in the day-to-day events, but over the sum of time, those atomic habits, they've built up a humongous, amazing thing. Now, finally, my personal observations about this book. Now, I have to say, interestingly enough, I'd heard more so about this book from other people than really even knowing about who James himself was, what the topic was about. I knew it was about habits. That's about it. And I thought it was going to be, quite basic, like really, really basic. And it was. It was basic, but not in a bad way. It was basic in the sense that it described habits, the laws that IDED model around behavior, the behavior of craving and cue, craving, reward, and making it easy, as well as the loop that goes back through it. The description of how all of these behaviors actually happen in every single interaction that we're doing, either consciously that we're aware of it or subconsciously, just happening all the time. But it was just able to describe really simply, really straight to the point with enough examples that, yes, you can term that it quite easy, like quite straightforward examples. You're not going to find anything here that's throwing a curveball or some of the more complex behaviors that you might have to shift. But it lays the foundations, those principal attitudes and thoughts and laws that you go, okay, I get it. I get this habit formation, this atomic habit formation theory or idea. You can then go and apply it to much more complex sins, or at least help to break them down. So I did enjoy that while it was a very basic book, it did so in a very brilliant way. So it has my win for that. So really, Atomic Habits, really by James Clear, proposes that ideas that are small, consistently, can change behavior and can lead to remarkable improvements in personal and professional life by creating and reinforcing new habits, really is a summary. And I really enjoyed it. I actually gave this book an 8 out of 10. And would I recommend it for folks at home, you mere mortalites, to go and have a bit of a read? Absolutely. If you haven't already read anything from James Clear, or you haven't heard him on a podcast or something else, and you really want to get to the core foundation around atomic habits or habits in general, I think it's a fantastic book. It might be one that you then refer to time and again, but you're probably more likely, which I'm about to do with this book, is that you'll read it, you really enjoy it, and then you'll go, you know what? I want to give it to someone else. I think they would benefit from it too. And those are the sort of books that I go, yeah, if I'm willing to do that, or I'm willing to recommend it in such a way, I'm going to rate it quite highly. So that has been, for me, Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you've read the book or you have any thoughts and comments around it, there's many ways you can reach out to us here at the Mere Mortals podcast. Obviously, if you're watching this through some form, YouTube or other ways, make sure you leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed to us, do so. What the hell are you doing? But primarily as well, if you have the capability or you have the capacity, if you have played around, or even if you haven't, go to newpodcastingapps.com. You have the ability to send through a boostergram, some sort of value to us directly, even with a comment. And Karen actually reads those out monthly as well, so we can have a conversation around them specifically. Whichever way you want to interact with us, don't mind too much, as long as you leave us some sort of form of value, and that might be whichever you choose. Comment, value through Bitcoin, sharing with someone else. It all makes a big difference to us. For now, me and Mortalites, I'm going to leave it at that. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Juan,